This is The Body's Compass with your host, Matt Sorensen. Today, Matt is speaking with Bee Pennington. Bee used breathwork as a central strategy to change both her body and her mind after living with extreme health anxiety and chronic fatigue for much of her adult life. She has been using breathwork in coaching since 2014 as a way to help her clients learn how to self-support, self-connect, and as an ongoing technique to restore balance. In 2024, Bee became a qualified breathwork instructor. With over a decade of functional medicine health coaching, including being awarded Health and Wellness Coach of the Year in a healthcare setting by the Australia and New Zealand Health Coaching Body, and leading a team of coaches in a functional medicine clinic, Bee loves to support women who want to feel more connected to their bodies. She loves to simplify health and concepts, making them meaningful and actionable. Bee recently turned her eye towards fertility support through coaching, as she really appreciates this group as ripe to gain so many benefits from learning the tools she shares.
Hello and welcome to The Body's Compass. I'm Matt Sorensen today with a bit of an old mate, we could say. It's been a while since we connected. I think it was about 10 years ago, back when I was in the mindset to move to Melbourne, but we've shared our opinions on Melbourne, so I'm not allowed to say anything else. I'm with Miss Bee Pennington today. So, Bee, just so I want people to get to know you a little bit better, and how everything that you've been through is going to influence your viewpoints on everything that we talk about today. Can you share an overview of what shaped you as a woman and why you put so much energy in working kind of with mostly in females in this space?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm 50 now, and you have those pockets of your life where you're like, that feels like forever ago. I'll keep it as neat as I can keep it. And I do think it's important just to mention the very early context, because I was a really sensitive kid, and as I grew into my teens, I started developing health anxiety, and it got to the point where it actually became very, probably one of the biggest parts of who I was. It really just sat under so much. For an example, if I ever watched the news and they said, we've just found that butter does this or whatever, I literally couldn't watch it. So it got to a point where it was massively overwhelming. It came to a massive head when I was pregnant and my hormones were doing all sorts of stuff. And then it stayed for a while longer. So let's say from maybe early teens to, let's call it early 40s, had pretty strong anxiety that ran through just kind of every day of my life. I spent 20 years in hospitality, which I loved because I love people and connecting with people. And then after the separation or the breakup of a relationship, my daughter's dad and I separated and kind of just sank into this really dark, hopeless, no money, moved away, wasn't by any of my mates, anxiety, and would say that's the pocket of my life where I did have true depression. It didn't last for too long, thankfully, but it was definitely there. And slowly rebuilt myself. Also found out I was a celiac. And after the separation, I thought I need to study something. And I don't know quite what I want to do because I just didn't know what I loved. And I ended up doing clinical nutrition and loved clinical nutrition. And that was where my life pivoted. And I started moving towards health-focused work. And used to listen to Underground Wellness, started listening to Paul Chek. Yeah, I know, right? But really was just fascinated, pulling it all in. And then there was this moment where I was doing an assignment for clinical nutrition and I had to research these 3 different papers and they all disproved themselves. And I remember sitting there thinking, God, I was believing this. A minute ago, this was the truth and this was the facts. And then that got disproved. And I started having a bit of a fracture of that relationship with the scientific truth. And I thought, what do I want? I want to go macro. I just want to pull all the way out and think from a health perspective, what makes sense.
Mm.
Rhythms, cycles, seasons, right? So then I moved macro, and that's actually when I went to found Paul Chek and went and did HLC 1 and 2. So
Is that where I met you?
that was, yeah, I think so.
It was HLC 2,
It was
wasn't it?
it was around about that time.
Okay.
Yeah, possibly.
Mm.
I did 1 with Joe Rushton, and then I did 2 with Paul Chek.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah,
Eh?
you've probably done hundreds and thousands of sessions now. You're like, where was I?
Yeah.
So, and then we're still quite, at that point, definitely was still quite high anxiety. But one of the things that totally shifted my world, and I only know this on reflection, was by doing a gong. So one of the things Paul talks about is the 100 days of practice. I go out with a Tai Chi stick every day for 20 minutes. And if you missed a day, you started again. And I wasn't going to do that. And I think that was probably the first time that I felt in my body like a softening or an inwards connection, maybe. Wasn't ready to meditate. Life was still busy, single parenting, struggling money-wise, way overworking. And then so then around about 2020-ish, I really started opening myself to breath work. I read Breath by James Nestor, thought it was fascinating, and started kind of moving more towards that. And in about 2022, 23, had a massive relationship fracture with my mum and was really struggling. Was in therapy, like talk therapy was really helpful, but it wasn't cracking the code. And a friend of mine had spent a lot of time with plant medicine, and I'd never been drawn to it. It just hadn't been on my radar. But I called him one day and I said, I feel really stuck. I can't move past this sticky point with this tear in a relationship, and I don't know where to put myself. Would it be okay if I come and sit in the medicine with you? And he was very generous and said, absolutely, come and sit with me. And so I thought I would go in there and have all these like epiphanies, and that I would be like, that's the part of my psyche that's, in play. And but nothing like that happened at all, Matt. What actually happened was I spent about 12 hours channeling. So I'm lying there and I start getting all these knowings, all these insights. And the guy that I was sitting with, he'd lost his mum years before, maybe 15 years earlier, she'd passed away. I see her coming through. She's showing me photos of images of him as a boy. And I was describing him later, exactly the little boy that I'd been shown. And then he showed me a photo and it was exactly him. And as you can imagine, just wild. And at the same time, really natural. Like he'd go, oh my God, that's incredible. And I would go, it is. And it's also kind of natural, if you know what I mean. So it wasn't blowing my mind quite as much, I think, as it might have. And so then I started moving more towards opening that pathway. I did spend a little more time exploring plant medicines, only ever ceremonially, only ever in guidance and real reverence for the medicine. And my God, it's taught me so much.
That does, yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. And it really has allowed me to go back into what I think that sensitivity as a child was a lot of spiritual awareness, a lot of openness to the energies on the land where I grew up, which was on a land where a lot of the land wars happened in New Zealand. So only finding out as an adult that the creek that ran under our house was called Blood Creek. There was a lot of death on the land where my house was built. So that's kind of where I am today. That's, I've spent a decade as a functional medicine health coach working with chronic and complex sickness and supporting those people. So I really feel now like I'm almost quite evenly spread in that very sort of heart-centered, spiritual, opening space, very earth connected, but also very, other connected, and then appreciating the realities of human 3D-ness. and figuring out what that looks like for people.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was also a very sensitive child, but I didn't know what it was. I felt not outcast, but certainly not fitting in, and was able to sort of read people in a way, able to hear things, see things, and yeah, parents sort of drummed that out of me very, very quick. But then
Yeah.
as you get
Parents
older,
are amazing at that.
yeah, well, I think Carl Jung said all parents are born God until their parents beat it out of them, which very applicable in a lot of cases. But I remember growing up thinking I was really weird. I know that's weird to think I'm weird because a lot of people think I'm very weird, which I think it's not weird if I'm weird.
You might be super normal.
100%. I'm the most normal person I know. And I just remember as I was growing up, you know, you meet someone like a Paul Check who can take something so complex and just break it down to itty bitty chunks for your ego to digest. And he was really the first person to help me put words to the experiences I had as a child.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
My first ever time doing plant medicine was technically in his kitchen in San Diego. That's a story for another day.
I bet. But I'm really curious, like when you, knowing what you know now with the hindsight and the insight, what was happening as a child?
Well, I was very, very sensitive. And you could say that my sensitivity and let's call it the environment I was in, those energies weren't conducive to each other. They weren't congruent. But I needed that catalyst, that polarity to fine tune as I grew into them. So I can see that now in hindsight, but when you're anywhere from 4 to sort of 12 years of age, that's not really on your priority list to look for. I just wanted to play footy and Ninja Turtles and cricket and eat
Ninja Turtles.
chocolate.
So good.
That's all you want to do as a child. But I had to do a lot of, similar to you, right? I had to go through heartbreak to be able to get me to a point where I could just sit still. Because we get busy in day to day, but we get so caught up in the busy, we forget what's between the busy or why we're doing the busy. And I had to just get, my heart trampled on. And for me, just like, what the hell? And just to, when you've got to get slapped so hard metaphorically, it's just like, what?
Sometimes you have to get slapped that hard.
Sometimes you do.
I don't know that you always do, but it certainly looks like a pattern for a lot of people.
Shouldn't need to. I don't like the word shouldn't.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's how, I think I just sort of, I get images of like people's spirit guides, they're finally addressing themselves and their pain and their crisis and their life and relationships, whatever. But they're like, I'll do it. I'll get to it. And then I can just see their spirit guides just like smacking them across the face from the spirit world. And they're just, it's like, listen, do something.
Here's this lesson. Well, you've done body work on me, and I remember thinking it almost felt to me, and you've only done it once, I think, Matt, but I really remember thinking like, I feel like this guy can see my organs. Like I'd never had anyone, I have had 1,000 massages and I've been to osteos and stuff, but I'd never felt like I'd had my body read the way that you did. It was really quite incredible.
I remember doing that. I can't remember the specifics about it, but when
I'd be shocked if you could.
I'm blessed with a short-term memory. When people leave, it's like gone.
Yeah,
I've got to write everything down. But when I put hand on tissue, I get an immediate vision.
Yeah,
and
yeah. it's no accident you've ended up doing what you're doing.
No, and that's kind of soul plan. Doesn't always make sense at the rational level as we go. Doesn't make any earthly sense by any means.
Yeah.
But that's where you trust it. And,
But it's the thing of like, when you do it, tell me about how it feels for you. But it's like when you're doing it, you're in such coherence. There's no resistance. There's no competing. It can feel like the most natural thing, right?
Mm.
That's a bloody great sign that you're on track, that you're in your zone.
It's easy, and it's the intent of, if I'm working on you, I want to help. I don't know how, I don't know where, and early on, before I did all the anatomy stuff, I knew I was doing something, I just had no idea what.
Can I ask you a wacky question?
Oh,
or actually, not a wacky question.
No.
Yeah, I'll whack it on.
Whack it on.
When you are working on people, or even like moving towards someone to work in their energy space, do you actively work with your spirit team, with guides or with doctors or any sort of anything like that?
Depends on the person.
It's not your practice to do that. You don't have that go-to.
I don't not have a go-to, but I don't have a go-to. It's very,
Say more.
Yeah. Imagine being in here for a day. It's the person's usually laying down, and if I'm not getting a clear map of what the story is, I'll often just I prefer to call in their side.
Yeah.
Because their side's more invested into it. And look, there's still times where it's just, you just don't know. And they've seen a billion different people, which is a lot.
It is a very
big number. It's a big number, and no one. And it's just it's their time, or they got to go through the thing that they need to go through. That's just what it is.
Right, it's part of their path. Yep.
Some people are open to that. Some people, no, I want to go to this place and get another X-ray, and that's just
That's a really good point. Because it feels very obvious to me that you've got this incredible team. I very much sense them around you, and I can see them walking with you towards a person. And that if you chose to get them to say, all right, this doctor, come in through me and channel, But I love what you've brought up is that, if you fix someone and you take that lesson out of their experience, are we robbing them of something? It can go both ways, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that.
Yeah.
Either it's going to serve or it's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, we want the perfect patient every time, but then sometimes the patient comes in and we have a discussion or we do the thing, and at times it's more about me.
Yeah.
Than about them, not knowingly. Like they came in with a certain thing, but I kind of walk away with, I need to do something with that. And it's always interesting when that happens and I go and do the thing. They always reach out at some point and either book in for a chat or they say, pain's gone, every time.
Awesome.
Which is quite interesting. Bee?
Awesome.
You work with nervous system regulation, do you not?
I do, Matt.
I have been known to dabble as well, and there are a myriad of facets attached to that. So what, if you had primary go-tos, what would they be?
I've got a few. I won't go to strategy first. The first thing I'll say about it is because typically when we're talking about nervous systems, we're often also talking about stress, right? So the first thing I think of is stress is not inherently bad. Oh. And to go back to Paul Chek, he was the first one that brought me to this idea that stressors can be amazingly helpful and healthful and positive. And I think what we broadly do is we categorize it. And I see this in the clinic all the time. In their first appointments with the practitioners will get a sense of what stress load looks like. Fascinating when we see timelines of onset of conditions that marry up almost often identically with life events, stress events, and things like that. But and so when people hear, "Are you stressed?" people are often hearing, "Are you stressed out?" Their perception of is that end state of like overwhelm, freaking out, zero capacity and low resilience. And I really love to help people remember that stress is amazing as well. Sunshine, incredible. Too much, not great. Cold water, helpful, not for everyone, not all the time, So it's more about understanding the balance of those things. And the other thing I tend to think about with nervous system is that it's so dynamic. My nervous system will have changed multiple times, even in this conversation. And so another thing, amazing. Another thing that we tend to do is we put things in big blocks and say, I'm either, rest, digest, reproduce, and immune function, and that parasympathetic, it's lovely and calm over here, and that's where calm lives. Or we think it's all, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which actually isn't quite right either, and that you're either in either state. And I think of it more like a pendulum that swings, because if we think about the fight and flight and what's happening in your body there with the chemicals being released and the blood flow redistribution and things like that, yes, helpful if you're in a confrontation or a threat situation, but also will be present in a game of footy during intimacy, like any a dancing, you're out dancing, you're not in restoration there, but it's beautiful and helpful. So that dynamicism and the pulsing of it. And what I love doing in my work is helping people recognize what their window of tolerance is like. So if we're looking at total time spent in your experience, whether it's what you're thinking or how your body's processing your world or what you're exposing yourself to, what does it look like? What's the total load? And can we come back and encourage the coming back to the softness in the moments of extremes where we might have the kids are fighting, or someone left the aircon on, or there's a traffic jam or something. A lot of times people go there and get stuck there because they maybe don't recognize because it's normal, but also haven't really learnt to come back to that softer point, which again isn't a fixed state, it's a spectrum. Does that make sense?
100%. I think the sweet spot's in the middle, because stress is perception.
Yes.
Really. We can both look at a snake. You're looking at it, oh, that's a snake, I might shit myself.
100%. Yeah.
It's all perception. So I think for every hardening, there has to be a softening. We get caught up in one or the other, not realizing that they both exist. We're just focusing on one side of the coin. And we can look at the same coin, and I argue that it's heads, you argue that it's tails. We're both right.
Yeah. Joe Rushton did this thing with me, and you'll know about this. Oh God, I was so naive. I don't know why I put my hand up. The room that we were in was quite crammed. Like the tables were all quite close. There wasn't heaps of like open space. And she said quite casually, "Who's afraid of spiders?" And I whipped my hand up. And then she said, well, and we were talking exactly about this. And again, I think it was my first true gripping of this kind of conversation. I've got this bag here. It's a shopping bag zipped up, and there is a spider in it. There was a spider in the garden this morning, and I've got one in it. And all I'm going to do, Bee, is put it just by you. Well, I threw myself out of the chair. I think I climbed over someone get me out of here. Not as bad as that anymore, but definitely at that point, that was a real thing. Of course, there wasn't a spider in the bag. full physiological response, sweating, my breath changed, I was in full escape. And the perception was false. And I think in life, man, do we get our perceptions wrong so much of the time.
Well, I think we have a concept, and then if we don't, it's like we already have something that's preconceived. That something that's preconceived is already on steroids before it even physically manifests itself. And so by the time it physically manifests itself, the seed's been planted, and there you have it.
And you only need to get something, you build a bit of evidence, and then your brain starts believing that that's what the thing is. So in the coaching that I do, I really spent a lot of the last 10 years helping people start to learn what their habits of thinking are, because for exactly that reason, you can spend a lot more time in an activated state where actually there's no real threat. And there's, and so for my favorite pathway for this has been the work by Byron Katie, who explores the truth of what is not the story of the past, not the story of the future. And it's remarkably simple. It's great because there's that framework, and it's potent. You can shift on a dime once you've explored what you're thinking and believing. So powerful.
Yeah, and a lot of the thoughts that we think aren't really our own.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
You remember Paul saying that if you got a supercomputer and got all of your, he's quoting research, but if you got all your thoughts that you've ever thought and somehow traced them back to the original source, then you'd be lucky to have 1 or 2% genuine, like original thought that are actually yours. The rest are, most people's thoughts are just other people's opinions.
Yeah.
Or they're just trying to live out someone else's life, which is a huge, that can only really lead to burnout or depression or something.
But I think that kind of makes sense that we do that, right? Because if you're a child and you're learning about the environment, and really as a kid, it's like connection and love and safety.
It's got to function for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That is the very origin of pulling from your environment for the information and the context. And then we just keep doing that forever.
Well, unfortunately, we don't grow up out of it.
Yes.
And that just becomes normal.
One of the things I often say is, we're kind of like 30, 40, 50-year-old toddlers who drive cars and wear suits. From that emotional growth, challenging ourselves, being willing to explore and adapt some of the pathways that we've carved in. So often if I'm stuck in traffic, I'll look around and just imagine everyone's just a toddler doing their best.
Well, I used to get proper road rage, and more so from an entertainment viewpoint. And I mean, you know me, I'm pretty chill 99% of the time. But
that surprises me.
It's about balance, right? But I was in traffic the other day, and something happened. I don't even know. In my car, and I could feel it rise up. And I thought, well, if I had to be present, say, okay, well, if this exists, its opposite exists. So I think it was like someone slowing me down. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, if that's true, someone else, either I'm slowing someone down as well, or someone else is trying to speed me up in a different aspect of life. There's the balance. And just being aware of the two, that's where that is. That's, yep, cool. Then it just like neutralized straight away.
That's so cool.
I still get Tourette's from time to time, but we won't need to go into that.
The approach that I take to that is that Chinese parable. And I won't go into the whole thing, but the farmer gets the horse and the neighbors say, oh, congratulations, that's so great. And he says, maybe, and then his son rides the horse and breaks his leg. And then, all this cascade of events that could be perceived as positive or negative. And he remains very neutral about it could be good and it may also not be good. And I'm open to both. That's what I go to in traffic. If I'm stuck behind someone and I'm like, come on, you dickhead, I just immediately go, oh, what if there's a world where this is actually putting me in the perfect spot? And I just thank them. And then, same thing, it shifts.
Yeah.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole episode in itself right there.
Yeah.
But I know you work with women and a little bit of fertility. What nervous system deregulators do you notice influence women and men the most?
Yeah, I've only kind of recently intentionally moved towards fertility. Having said that, I have worked with people for, a decade in a clinical setting. So I've been fortunate that I do have some insights. Look, it's a really interesting time in people's lives, right? When you think about what people are trying to achieve, they're wanting to see new life. And the way that I think about the body is the garden. And I've got my own little veggie patch growing out the back now. It's interesting. I planted things at the same time with the same soil. I talk to them every day. I go out and say, how are you guys doing? Give them water and stuff, whatever. One is growing really beautifully. And the other pot, all of them are slower. And I'm like, okay. But there are obviously some differences in play. Maybe they were given different seeding opportunities. There were different batches, something. But I think about the terrain that we're seeding into. And I really feel for people because I guess almost no matter what we're talking about, one of my ever-growing beliefs is that our biology is not designed for the world that we live in. And it's becoming increasingly more like that when we think about the performance factors, the way that we need to be seen in the world, what makes us successful in the eyes of ourselves and others. And a lot of that is around how we look and how we perform. And when you think about if we're creating fertile soil in the body, part of it's the stuff we've been talking about with the chemicals and the stress and perception and things like that, as that sort of the creek that runs under the house, right? Just that the undercurrent and the signaling from that perspective. But then there's a whole lot of stuff that will be a stressor to some degree, to greater degrees and lesser degrees. And Shanna Swan's work is probably where I point with this around endocrine disruptors, around toxins and chemicals and plastics and things that are in our environments and in our bodies. And this is where I think there's more space to have an even conversation with men and women about that productive fertility preparation, because God, so much of it would naturally fall onto the woman. And therefore, I think a lot of the big feelings, if it doesn't go through, sit with the woman as well. But Shanna Swan's work, I looked it up this morning because I wanted to see if there was a detail. So she's written a book called Countdown, which is all about the decline in fertility rates. She's an endocrine and environmental reproductive specialist. She's an epidemiologist. There was a 2017 study over 4 decades, so 40 years, right? In the Western countries, males' sperm plummeted by more than 50%.
I thought it was more than that, but still, that's...
Well, more than 50%. So anything more than 50%. But,
yeah.
And it continues to decline, right? And they talk about the changes even in the physiology of men and babies who are being born. But I remember listening to her on an interview she did, and she was talking about people who lived in farming regions and who were experiencing difficulty conceiving, and they cleared out all the chemicals. They stopped using pesticides. They went fully organic. They ditched all the plastic and went glass and things like that. And they got pregnant. And it's like, and the amazing thing is the body's potential to recover, the body's potential to kind of cleanse and correct. I think how amazing that we can do that. But think of the aftershaves, the body creams, the toxins, the eating food from plastic things, putting them in the microwave. Like, there are so many. So I think you've got, when we're thinking of the typical stressors, there's that really big, juicy, emotional, that deep desire that can feel all-encompassing.
Yeah, that's the archetypal driving the psychology and emotions. And
Yeah. And then we've got the world that we live in. And so my whole thing broadly, and it almost doesn't matter what we're talking about. I want to go macro and then I want to go micro. And what I mean by that is I want to go macro in concept. Seasons, when's the food growing? What's your sleep window? Without putting all the rules in, but going, what makes sense? Like, we're a living being that is organized and has some programming. What makes sense to do? So do that as best as you can. When I say micro, this really is on the back of coaching so many people who don't have space, capacity, or even desire to meditate for not even 5 minutes. Sometimes that's too much. And so that's one of the things I've loved about breath work is I say to people, do one breath, just like one. And then do it whenever you can through your day. And then the more you can do it and the more your body can reorganize towards it and feel it, you find it easier to access. So I break down the things to do to be the smallest bite that I think people will willingly take, just so they do something. And then do the macro as far as like, chuck out your plastic. Get the best quality food you can get. Turn off the telly while you're eating if you can. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, I tell patients that, think about this, right? Nature has a plan. We are part of the plan. Nature's plan is to always create something more beautiful, something stronger, faster, etc. It's often, I say, look, if you were trying to make something more beautiful, you would need to deem the thing to be worthy of becoming more beautiful. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. A lot of people have kids just because they think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Or I better have a kid before I'm
X number of age.
30, 35, 40, whatever that number is for someone. They think that's what they're supposed to do. And I said, you've got to convince nature that you're worthy from a health perspective, mentally, physically. Your kids are going to choose you. The souls are going to come to you. Are you incongruent, or are you congruent with the souls that you're going to bring to this planet for this earthly experience? Are you ready for that?
And that doesn't mean that those little souls aren't going to be the biggest trigger you've ever met in your life.
They build each other's buttons.
Yeah, they sure do. And then they press them, and then they're teenagers and they press them big time.
Yeah. So it's more, I guess, when I'm working with people, yes, it's clearing out all diet stuff and, household cleaners and all that kind of stuff. That's like a must for me. But also getting ready to psychologically and spiritually catch that as well.
Yeah. I've done a couple of little meditations that are on my website. One of them is preparing the portal, where there's a beautiful visualization actually about the womb space and bringing women into their own bodies, because also it can be so medicalized and clinical, right? But like, God, come into this incredible space. And then there's also a goddess-focused one, which is really about the woman in her entirety, in her highest form, and becoming really intimate with that part of you. I would have loved that, I reckon, because you can get so focused on the timing and the tracking and the temperature and all that shit, which is important shit. I shouldn't say shit.
There's other shit
far out.
as well.
There's a lot of other shit. That connection to your own soul, that connection to your physical body, it's, oh my God, it's incredible. Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Well, on that, Bee, women go through cycles every month. How do you recommend supporting during different phases of that menstrual cycle.
Yeah, and it goes beyond monthly. Like sometimes it's hourly, you know. There's seasons as well. I do think there are all these concurrent cycles. What season of work are you in? What season of relationship are you in?
Cycles and just, yeah.
But if we're thinking of the monthly cycle, actually, there's just my one favorite resource, my one favorite go-to, which is a TED Talk by Lucy Peach. She's a Perth-based singer. She's got this beautiful, funny TED Talk where they talk about the 4 different seasons. And then like within that, when you're in your winter, here's what's happening with your hormones. When you're in your spring, here's how you're going to feel. And here's when you should get into the summers, when you get in your projects, and winters when you say thanks, but no thanks. The thing that I find is that women particularly, especially when we're talking about training and exercise, they set and forget. They go, Mondays I do HIIT, Tuesdays I do bar, Wednesdays I do Pilates. And I'm like, where's the consideration of how well did you sleep? Where are you in your cycle? What's your stress load like? What's the rest of your day like? What have you got capacity? And just again, to go back to Paul Chek, I know one of my key takeaways again from him was if you can't be 1% better than the last time you were in the gym, you don't belong in the gym, which doesn't mean don't get up and move your body. It means don't go and train at a high level. That's how I take that, right? I love women to start, and it all goes back to the stuff we were just chatting about, Matt. Learn your body. Learn what it feels like to live in your body. Listen to what the feedback is. And I do think this world we live in where it is a little more set and forget. Like, don't do a squat while you're on your period. Like, but I've spoken to so many people and they're like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. You know, like, come on, ladies. So it's the honoring. It's the intention to be able to listen and honor, because you absolutely have weeks in your cycle where you can drive and strive, where you can compete and you can improve and you can contribute. And there are others where rest is deeply required. That's kind of my big picture approach to hormones.
Yeah, it's such a big topic. I'm working with a marathon runner at the moment, and I swear her run coach is trying to kill her because there is zero regard of how she's feeling, menstrual cycle, everything you just mentioned up till now.
Digestion.
Nothing. It was, it's on this day, at this time, this, this period before this event, you're running this, come what may. And she comes, sometimes I've just got to wrap her in sticky tape just to get her going. But
literally. You're literally, you're being metaphorical.
No, but I won't go into too much details in case she's listening, but she's at that fork in the road of career and life now where it's like what's the real cost of all this. I'm really interested in your next answer. Many women I see as patients that are struggling to conceive, and upon some investigation into their relationships, I find many women don't actually feel safe with the person they're with. So it creates an unconscious blockage within their psyche, and their body often follows suit and just sort of says no in its own way. What are your thoughts in that regard?
I think that's fascinating. It's so fascinating. And do you know what? I've never thought about this, or I've never actually acknowledged this, but it took me about 3.5 years to fall pregnant. And sitting where I'm sitting now, many, many, many years later, I can actually recognize that I knew we weren't the right match for each other. There was no aggression or volatility in our relationship at all. It wasn't dangerous or anything like that. There was just no synchronization between us. We were incompatible in a lot of ways. And I think maybe there's a world where my body knew that. So I think there's probably layers and I don't know them all. I think firstly it's fascinating. I think secondly, the body will protect you when you aren't thinking to protect yourself. I also imagine, Matt, if you're being intimate with someone and there is that disconnection or the dislike or the fear or whatever that might be. When I think about what's happening in the body, if there's like a restricting and a closing and a tightening versus when you're in that full expression and there's a opening and a softening and a like wildly, more receiving sort of quality. So I imagine, and I actually don't know I don't know. I can only sort of come from perception, and I'd love what your experiences is. But there's the chemical thing of like the stress stuff that's in play that won't be maybe feeding into the right kind of strongest pathways. Marissa Peer often talks about that the body will create the physical expression to avoid something or protect yourself in some way. So the body is infinitely wisdom beyond what we cognitively have a plan to do.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways, because you could argue that if you're trying to conceive and you're not, then you can look at what we're talking about now. Go to the other extreme, and we talk about sexual abuse as an example, and then someone conceiving from that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think rational thought will get you so far, and I think we have to transcend that level of where that trauma happened into a different dimension, if you will, and look at the soul lessons, the soul contracts, even, where I know cases of someone has been sexually abused earlier in life or recently, and now they're with child. And I know one girl in particular, she went through an event, we'll say, and ended up keeping the baby, went through the birthing process and raising. And we kind of stayed in touch. She came in for visits very sporadically. And I saw her the other week for the first time in 6, 8, 9 months, something like that. And you could just see the look in her eye. She says, "This is the best thing that's ever happened."
Wow.
Because the connection that child has brought an entire family that was previously broken together.
Wow.
So we had the soul contracts talk, and I think
Give me goosebumps.
At the time we had that talk, she wasn't quite ready to make that, but she said, "I'll sit with it," and luckily, at least for her, she did, and now she sees like she called it God's plan, but you can call it whatever you want to call it. So there is that as well.
That's a very important part of the context. And I don't think, even if you have that restriction I was talking about, or like, it's none of that's a guarantee for whether anyone would or wouldn't conceive, right? There's all the biology stuff in play. There's the greater plan. There's all, I think if a soul wants to be born, it's going to be born. I remember Paul's last youngest kids, they weren't consciously planned. And I think there was 3 or 4 miscarriages, maybe even more at one point. Right. And if a soul wants to be born, it's going to be born. It'll find a way. So I think there's that element too, but also going back to the physical. Yeah, I don't know. I just imagine for different people in different scenarios around assault.
Yeah,
that would be a very hard thing to grab.
Yeah, and I think
potentially,
well, you could argue that's part of the lesson, and that sounds really insensitive to say, but if you again just transcend that, there is something there for you, and doesn't make earthly societal sense, but if you kind of sit with it and like, oh, if you're God for a day and playing puppeteer, there is no good or bad. We make it so. But back to the physical body, I think it's like a real thing, if we can call it a thing, where you're at that time of your life where you know you should have kids, or I think I want kids, and this is kind of the easiest avenue, if you will. You know, all the circumstances of life are just sort of set. That doesn't feel quite right. There's still a bit of a fractionated part of you that's like, yeah. But I mean, that soul contract has to mix with the physiology as well.
Yeah.
As well. And
I think overall, with the whole conception conversation, as you sort of see the bigger picture, so not taking into account sort of the different experiences that we've touched on today, but if you kind of look broadly at how people are coming to the fertility conversation as a society these days, there's a real readiness to step straight into intervention.
Yeah.
And if we can just like hold space for the step or two before that and really look at your garden, and not just your physical garden, your emotional, your spiritual, your relational, you know, it's a huge relationship.
Yeah. And what's also interesting clinically, I would find that the biggest roadblock, if you call it that, in men is congestion around the lower back and sacrum. So, you know, second chakra. With females, I've found it's primarily arterial, especially around the first chakra.
Yeah, right.
So there's the safety thing, and there's also, you know, everyone talks about the girl's biological clock ticking. It's the same for guys, different, but it's, you know, guys have the clock and it ticks for them.
Yeah.
As well. So, I'd
be fascinated to I don't know how much I've ever deeply considered that performance element for men. Like, I'm going to do a thing and there's going to be a result. And that even though women might feel like that deep, I don't know if they'll always feel shame, or they'll feel the deep sadness at not having conceived and things like that. From the men's perspective, though, I can appreciate there's probably like I performed and there's no result for the performance. Does that?
I haven't actively, so I can't comment, but yeah, it would be, because the way the guy's wired is, I've done a job, so where's the result?
Yeah.
You know, where for a woman it'd be much more about the journey. Yeah. And the journey isn't timed, where a guy's like, okay, I got a job. We're very laser. Us males, we fantastic at laser vision. We don't see the whole field, but that's what makes us really good at hunting and providing that laser.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly.
I think for some guys it would, and other guys actually sit down and listen to their partners, and the partner will explain, no, it's a journey. It's, you know, let's just ride the wave, and then okay, yep, I can be that. But then in between takes, let's say, he ideally would take every opportunity to better himself, because at the moment of conception, who he is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, mixing with who she is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's a snapshot, and that's a blueprint for Bubba.
Yeah. So
I tell guys all the time that just keep improving. It, I could go on a huge tangent on that, but that's basically.
I could too, Matt, honestly. And I'm stopping myself.
I know. I'll have to book in another appointment, I think. But I'll get on to the next one. Sleeping is a big one. Yeah. We all know how important sleep is. And if you don't think, you know, sleeping needs prioritizing, then I would challenge anyone to stay awake for 2 or 3 days and see how you function. What are your tips for women who aren't sleeping that well?
I think figure out firstly if there's anything obvious about why. You know, is there a thing? I'm perimenopausal at the minute, and a lot of my sisters are having massive sleep disruption to great, frustration. I mean, your point is right. Like, suboptimal sleep affects cognitive ability, it affects blood glucose regulation, it affects satiety and hunger signaling. Like, the cascade is very real.
Yeah.
So from that, again, biological, physiological perspective, it can, two things. One, we work in a beautiful cycle. The body's expecting cues. What cues can we give it and when to best set ourselves up? That's kind of one thing. Find those cycles and those rhythms. I'm working with a girl at the minute who's really sick, really, really, really quite unwell. It's very low resilience, very low capacity, but she was staying up until about 4:00 in the morning on her phone, just doing whatever she's doing, and waking up sometime around midday or 1. And even though in her waking day, she can't do stuff, like she can't go out and at this point be active in the world, but we've had a few conversations. We're pretty new to each other. I've started just coaching her. And we are just really gradually bringing back, so really gently, like I found in my experience, it doesn't work if I say to her, you really need to be off your phone by 10. She's going to be like, meh, that's totally not going to work. So when I spoke to her this week, she had been getting off her phone at 1 and reading for an hour and then falling asleep at 2. So we've got a 2-hour improvement so far.
Nice.
Slightly earlier wake time. And I'm saying to her, when you wake up, as soon as you don't go straight on your phone if you can help it. Try and get outside and put some light in your eyes. Let's start just like really gently bringing that cycle back into a little bit of a better pattern. But people don't sleep for lots of different reasons. And the other thing is your body is really expecting the rhythm of your day. And one of the practitioners at the clinic, I quite like his framing of it. He's like, what do you do with a baby? You feed it, you bathe it, you read it a book or a toddler, and then you put it to bed. And you do the same sort of thing at roughly the same time of day each day. And then that's the thing that the body's going to start anticipating and expecting. And I know Matt Walker, who wrote Why We Sleep, he's put a real emphasis on actually consistency with bedtime being one of the most significant factors. Your body doesn't know it's the weekend. It just doesn't. It's not like I'm a 5-day, 2-day machine. It's like it's a 24-hour kind of rhythm. Yeah. So those are the sorts of things, like obviously all the practical things. Have a conducive sleep environment. Get off your tech as early as you can. If you were out camping, would you naturally fall asleep earlier? You probably would. If you weren't sitting around a fire drinking, like if you literally just weren't doing any of the things, you would naturally go to sleep earlier. So the weather, the light tells you, it's your cue. The other thing is about people waking through the night. I don't actually know. You can probably tell me this because I hear, it's that thing where we've got this rule that people need to sleep a certain number of hours. And there's something in me that questions the absolute truth of that, because I do think we are all a little unique and some people are much more alive and alert at different times. And I think that that's going to serve a function from a human survival perspective. Someone's up around the campfire, they're instinctively up later. Someone naturally rises early, they get to, so I think again, when we do like set and forget rules, we miss the nuance and the individuality. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think you mentioned camping. That's probably the easiest way to reset your sleep-wake rhythm. Yeah. Because even if you're around a campfire drinking, within, let's say, 2 or 3 hours of the sun going down, either you're going to pass out or you're just going to go to sleep because there's nothing else to do. And you'll be tired anyway. Yeah. Because if you've actually done camping, you would have
you're out doing stuff.
Built the fire and cooked dinner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. The 8 hours set in stone, I think that's more of an average to my knowledge. I'm not an 8-hour guy. It's really weird. I need an odd number. I can get by with 3, 6, or 9 hours.
So you do the 90-minute full sleep cycle and you wake up at the end of the full sleep cycle.
If I have 7 hours sleep, I'm fine. If I have 9 hours sleep, I'm fine. If I'm 5, I'm still good. If I have 4, fucked. 6, no good.
Oh, that's
8,
hilarious.
I don't
Forget
feel great.
about it.
Yeah, I might as well just stay in bed for another hour. Yeah,
Wow.
that's my body. And
What happens when you say, if you get 6 hours, you fart? Like what happens?
I'll notice because I'll always sort of track it, not, write it down, but I'll always look at the clock when I'm going to bed and when I wake up. And if I go to bed at 10 and I wake up at 6, before I get to the clock, I feel just extra heavy. And I just know. And I'll, yep.
A bit groggy.
Yep.
I got woken midway and interesting.
I'll go to bed at 7, wake up at 5. But,
Do you say go to bed at 7?
If I wake up at 7.
Oh, you said go to bed at 7.
There's been nights I've woke. Well, yeah, we recently got back from overseas and, the whole jet lag thing. And there was one night we slept 11 hours, but that's.
Oh, wow.
That's what you get when you travel.
That's an exception. It is. The other thing I would say, Matt, and I do say this to people I'm coaching, and this is super, super basic, but if you get up to go for a pee in the night, do not turn the light on.
You should know where your toilet is by now.
You should know where it is by now.
You shouldn't need to miss.
But, even do it, I was on a coaching call the other day with someone who said she wakes twice through the night. And I said, just talk me through what happens with liquid in the late afternoon, early evening. Like, are you drinking much? And so just that's one of the variables. If you're well hydrated through the day, slow it down in the evening and set yourself up and have a big wee before bed, unless it's a blood sugar related thing, which is a slightly different conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. There's all different conversations around that, but just on the pee thing, I had a really weird conversation during this week. You've made me think of it again. I'm trying to just give you the 101 version.
Yeah.
There's something about, for some guys, they can't wee sitting down. I don't know what it is. It's like a macho manly. I don't know. But he's like, I can't. I said to him, wake up in the middle. Basically said what you said. Don't turn the light on. Just if you need to, feel your way around. Feel the walls. I'm sure you know where the toilet is by now. And I said the words, treat yourself to a sit-down wee. And he thought that was incredibly demasculating.
Wow.
I don't know what I said. Well, there's something else going on there. We can talk about that another time. Yeah. But for now, at least use your ears. You can hear where the water, I hope you know the difference between the bowl and the floor sound-wise.
It'd be fascinating to say, do it once and sit down and wee and listen to what the thing is that comes into your mind. What are the words? What's the feeling? What are you being told?
Well, would you like to know a useless fact?
Oh, 100%, yes.
The German word for a man who sits down is Sitzpinkler.
That's cute.
It's an actual word.
That's beautiful, Matt.
You know what? I'm just here to share. That's what I love doing. So, B, if a man and or woman comes to you and they want to get healthy, whatever that means, over the next 3 to 6 months, either just for themselves or they're trying to conceive or, whatever their goal is, what do you prioritize?
I prioritize curiosity and learning. I want to learn about them, but I also want them to learn about them. And that's such a coachy thing, right?
Yeah.
Because as you know, coaches don't give advice. They ask questions and help people uncover their own truths and pathways. I've got deep curiosity for how and why we are, what and how we are. And so that first lens of first we learn. So if it's around a specific habit or behavior or lifestyle thing, but you can do things like you can do food tracking, you can get data. Lots of people have data retrieving devices and things like that. I also really love understanding people's beliefs and mindset because, as we said earlier, I do feel like that's quite a big part of the conversation. And again, self-identifying is always more powerful than someone else telling you. So there are little tools like there's positive intelligence, which identifies our saboteurs. And so first I always learn, and I encourage them to learn. I also need to understand what their readiness for change is, because I can't tell you how many people have walked into the clinic to work with us with massive pain, massive health problems, debilitating, who are not ready to change. They're just not. And there's no judgment on that.
This dog could say the same thing.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But kind of know where you are in the readiness to change and recognize that no one else is going to fix you. I think that might be one of my biggest learnings from working in functional medicine. I would have previously assumed that pain would have been enough of a motivator and a driver, and it turns out it really isn't. And the people I've worked with in coaching who've had the most incredible life-changing experiences have been curious. They've asked lots of questions. They've been willing to sit with discomfort. I recently coached someone who was so awesome. She went to the practitioner and she said, towards the end of the program, she said, I can honestly say I've got so much out of coaching. When I first came here, I didn't want coaching. Didn't think I needed it. She's a high performance HR kind of stilettos woman. I didn't think I needed it. I didn't really want it. I would often come out of conversations with Bee thinking, really? Or feeling uncomfortable or a little challenged. And she said, and then I'd go away and think about it and really sit with it. And it's changed my life completely. But it was her willingness to sit with something. So I'm not really going to sit here and say you have to eat organic and you must chew all your food and you must get 8 hours sleep. I don't think that. I think those are elements of health, but I think it's a much bigger conversation around, like, what even is health to you, and how do you want to be, and what do you want your world to look like, and what does it look like now based on the existing patterns and beliefs? And then how do we gently move those things towards where you think you want to be?
Yeah, I like that's a really. I say that's a quite balanced approach, and you can do the organic, do the water, foundation principles, and all that, and that. Yes.
Like, don't keep eating shit and think you're going to get better, right? So yes, do the things.
Yeah,
water the plant.
I tie Dan Siegel's definition of mind into it, which is mind is a embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. So I say,
can you say that again?
Mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates energy and information.
Great.
So everything's energy and information. We are informed. We are energy informed.
Yep.
So I would say, first of all, like, what's your why? What is that for you? Define it. And if you, want to lose weight, not that I do many weight loss things, but if you wanted to lose weight, you wanted to get healthy, you want to get through this disease, this injury, whatever that is, what does that version look like? Because you need to embody that to become it.
Yeah.
And you'll find once you embody it, the universe will be a 1-to-1 ratio, and it will create and mirror everything that you do.
Yeah.
And then at a time, you're just going to wake up, open your eyes, and I'm him. Her.
What's your pathway towards that embodiment? How do you have people move towards that?
Really, I have to talk their language.
Yeah.
Because everyone has their own, I can give a lecture. And so the student, we had IMS 1 here last week. And obviously I said the same thing to all of them because they're all in the same room. 11 students, and they all heard different things.
Yeah.
And I had to say it sometimes 5 different ways.
Yeah.
So it's really dependent on them. I told them you need to learn how to become multilingual, because how I would say it to you would be different how I say it to whoever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
but
interesting.
It just takes, there's an art form and a science to it. The science is all about the influences on YouTube, but the art form is delivering it, living it,
Embodying.
Embodying
Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
B, although there are many facets to health and being healthy, yet it is amazingly simple, as we know. How do you recommend people balance reducing stress with not becoming over-focused on doing everything perfectly?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I know.
Talk about another episode. I'll go back to the thing of stress not being inherently bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think what society, I'll say Western society, and only maybe what I see or what I'm exposed to, we are so wildly out of balance. It's not even funny. And I think even a lot of so let's talk about it in the yin and the yang, kind of whatever, the achievement and the soft receiving, the focus and the release, however you want to think about it. And if anybody thinks about the entirety of their hour, their day, or their week, is there the flow? I would be honestly surprised if most people said yes, that there is.
Yeah.
And I think about that externalization that we've talked about with societal expectations and how we need to look and the ways we present ourselves and what success looks like.
Yeah.
And I was even reflecting this morning, there's someone I know who owned a health business, a really successful health business. And she decided to do 75 hard. And as soon as she did, having met her and understood her energy, I just was like, oh, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But for her, it was like intention and focus, and I'm going to shift weight, and I'm going to feel amazing, and right? I have to imagine this was created by a bloke for a bloke. And I even actually messaged her, and I would never normally say stuff without an invitation, but I just really felt called to care for her and say to her, please know that this is not always appropriate all the time. There might be a window where this might fit, but certainly not for 75 days. And I think she might have got like a month in before she completely burnt out, threw everything out the window, and was in a seriously worse condition than she was before she started. And even when I think about some of the things that are good, like cold therapy, how we're going to it often is still with that achievement and that go through the hard thing. So where is the softness? Where is the yin? Where is the receiving? And I am lucky that I'm connected with some women who do beautiful circles, who spend lots of time in nature, who have that real intentional softness and receiving and letting go and honoring each other and dancing in the female energy and stuff like that. But I would say it's a very, very, very small minority of society. So that balance, if I could focus on just one thing, it would be like helping people understand that the releasing and the not achieving and the surrender is as healthful as any of the doing stuff that you're doing.
My number
even
one,
stuff that looks good.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I would just say let yourself off the hook first and foremost, because you're on a journey. You want to eat well, which, but then people are going to take that to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I know clients, I know students who have spent literally thousands on a water bottle. And if you want to do that and you feel good, great. It's not me. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But there's a balance point. That balance point's different for everyone. I think it's largely how you relate to it. I would be really interested in. So I read a study. I think it was a hypnotherapist, their patient. A patient was hypnotized into thinking everything they were going to eat was helping their body, like 100% certain. Just like
Awesome.
you and I are going to the organic market, getting food, they had that mindset. They ate McDonald's, raw chicken, raw fish,
Oh my
all kinds of
gosh.
crap over a week.
Wow.
And they took kind of their biomarkers before and after, and it was actually improved after a week. Maybe 2
And they
weeks.
didn't get sick. They didn't
nothing.
get sick from the chicken.
No.
Oh, it's what Wim Hof did, right? Testing himself. Like,
It's just
incredible.
like, it's how the balance is how you relate to it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like, I'm not 100% healthy 100% of the time.
Nor am I, far from it.
You know, I know Paul mentioned the 80-20 rule. If you're really eat well and do all the things, 80% of the time you can handle the 20% you're not. I'm more of a 90-10, but sometimes it's 70-30. But I'd like to think I've created enough of a buffer to handle that. And I think people just get too carried away that way and too carried away sort of that way. And that balance is very individual.
But my whole thing is listen to the feedback. What's your body telling you? And is it whispering it or is it yelling it? Because if it's whispering it, please listen then. Don't wait for the voice to raise, because then you're going to have to do some fixing and backtracking, right? I would really encourage people where they have instinct and capacity almost to walk into, not towards boredom necessarily. I think boredom's amazing for creativity, but to find ways that feel effortless. And that might be finding people that are just so easy to be with that it's effortless, right? It might be taking your dog for a walk. Just, I don't know, like it would be different for everyone, but not in that performance pathway, not in that achievement pathway. Just look for a little bit more of the softness. And I say that for guys and for women as well.
Yeah, I think you've got to think of your goal, your dream, your objective, your legacy, if you want to go that deep. Does that person eat or drink what you're eating and drinking now?
Yeah, exactly.
And if they don't, then be conscious of it, enjoy it, but just there's consequences for everything. And if you do, let's say, experience some suboptimal consequences, don't have to bash yourself up. Just say, okay, that's
Just
what that
learn.
does. I'll have this less often, but I still enjoyed it. So celebrate that.
We've done a lot of, in the work that we do, because we see a lot of people with digestive concerns. We see a lot of autoimmunity. So we very, very often, and I'd say mostly, have a dietary intervention or a nutritional intervention. And, oftentimes I'll say to people, this is not about you never eating gluten again or never having cheese again. But what I want you to know, I want you to be so in relationship with yourself, not following someone else's rule book. I want you to know that, this weekend you're going away with your mates. It's going to be an amazing weekend. Does cheese give you diarrhea? Yes, it does. Is that a choice you'd like to make? Yes, I do. Because on the balance sheet of my life experience, it's part of what I want to do. So making food good or bad, because also in a previous life, Matt, there was so much food perfection that it was incredibly stressful and not actually very enjoyable. And I didn't find that to be a great place to live myself. So I've eased really quite a bit and softened off on that. But my body will still tell me. She'll still get cranky if I put stuff in that we don't have space for or capacity to digest or something.
Yep. Body's always talking 24/7. And I think it's what you said, developing a relationship with your body, developing a relationship with your life. Life's a participation sport, not just I'm going to take this tiny concept and just do it to death. It's okay. Well, a lot of people come to me, not arguing, but they'll say, oh, but this person said that. This person on YouTube said that. This Instagrammer said that. I said, coffee, right? There's going to be 100 articles saying it's great for you, 100 articles saying it's terrible. They're both right.
What does your body say? But it's the same thing if you sit at a dinner table with a whole family. That whole family is not necessarily going to be able to take the same identical foods and digest them and use them. And, like one person might have an allergy. Someone else is lacking digestive enzymes. Someone else, has a genetic origin that's from the other side of the world. That individuality goes right down to your own plate.
Yeah, so true. I just hope the diapers are nearby for some people.
Hopefully they know themselves well enough that they don't need to have them.
Yeah. Bee, this has been a lot of fun. I thank you for taking time out of your day just to kind of hang out and have a bit of a chin wag, as you said. So feel free to share any final comments where people can find you, learn more about you, or where do you want them to go? Beautiful.
BeePennington.com is my website. I'm on Instagram, BEE, like a bumblebee. _Pennington is my Insta. I do breathwork one-on-one. I do it in person and I do it remotely. I do coaching remotely. And I was saying to you just before, Matt, I've just started doing breath and brunch, which is a way for people to gather and have a breathwork session with your friends and then have a beautiful, lovely snack and herbal teas and food and connection and stuff. So that's something I've just popped onto my offering as well. But we haven't spoken really much at all about breathwork, but breathwork for me is central next time. So if I was going to leave anybody with just that one takeaway for what they can do today to maybe shift their health in the direction they want to go is use your breath. So taking a beautiful slow breath in like I did earlier through the nose and a really soft and gentle exhale is such a lovely way to just have an immediate physiological but emotional reality shifting experience. So that's my favorite thing.
I like Bee's breath and brunch.
Breath and brunch. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with a Kiwi accent. Sounds cool.
Nice to chat, Matt.
Well, we've had a little sample of Bee's genius, so check her out. And thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Body's Compass with Matt Sorensen and today's guest, Bee Pennington. If you want to find out more about Bee, check out her Instagram at Bee_Pennington or her website, beepennington.com. If any of this episode resonates, share it with someone it might help. If it helped you, come back. Before you go, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating and a warm review. It helps people find the show. For those interested, Matt has created a brand new online community called The Inner Circle, where you can get direct access to Matt through coaching calls. Visit healhub.net/The Inner Circle. As always, thanks for listening. Catch you next time.